So thank you very much. Very excited to be here with such a distinguished panel. As you know, mobile is really kind of the next disruptive technology. They say by 2014 it's going to be basically the preferred device of accessing content on the internet. And so we're very lucky to have some of the leaders in the federal industry kind of with us today to answer some of the challenges and obstacles that they're grappling with and some of their solutions. Obviously, with the movement towards bring your own device, also kind of having internal enterprise app stores as well as obviously the consumer apps. There's lots of challenges in being able to manage these devices, commercial purchases, and that sort of thing. So I think that's what we're going to mostly talk about today. I'm not going to read bios because they are in your program, so I'd rather just get right into kind of some questions and answers with our panelists. So I'm going to start off with Kathleen, because she's smarter. Can you talk about a little bit about the trends that you're seeing in kind of purchasing and managing mobile apps?
The trend we're seeing right now in the Office of Government-Wide Policy at GSA is keep asking us for policy on mobile apps and on the cloud, etc. And we have been looking at that. I work with OPP. We oversee the FAR. It's a little teeny book that has all of these rules in it. And one of the challenges we're having right now, this is the CAC, the Civilian Agency Acquisition Council, that discusses all of these issues. One of the requirements they have is you have to have a business case to make a recommendation to make a change or an addition or a deletion from the FAR. So one of the challenges we're having right now with the whole issue of cloud computing and apps is what is the business case? How is this different than other IT activities we're acquiring? And do we have any best practices? So one of the things that we are looking for is the development of best practices. And we understand all the security concerns, et cetera, around this. But right now, we think it's so new, we're questioning, is it necessary? And if it is necessary, what would be the business case for putting this in the acquisition regs?
Thanks very much. Next, we'll ask Erna a question. We'll talk a little bit about, she went ahead and launched the Enterprise App Store at NASA. Agencies are obviously looking to kind of create mobile apps for employees to download and manage. So with that, what were some of the lessons learned that you had with doing the NASA app?
Okay. Actually, our CIO gave us a challenge maybe a year ago. We had done a pilot for one of our apps, actually a client-server application, a web-based application, which does time and attendance more or less. And so we did a pilot maybe a year ago. And after the pilot, we went forth to our governance to ask if we could be designated, meaning this specific center, designated as the Center for Internal Mobile Application. And so she agreed to that, the governance process sanctioned it, and in addition to that, we asked if we could launch an app store. And so, having gone through the governance process, I probably have 10 pages of lessons learned that I could provide you. But what I will speak to are probably the top 3 or 5. And specifically, I think you would want to make sure that you have undoubtedly executive sponsorship. And having said that, when I mentioned that the CIO issued us a challenge, all the focus was on device. And we were always talking about our inability to address BYOD and data on a personal device. So what we focused on instead was mobile application management as opposed to MDM. And so what we're doing basically is providing the ability and device agnostic for our user community to be able to download and access internal mobile applications, hence the Center for Internal Mobile Applications. Another lesson learned would be to ensure that you are in sync with both your IT security, as was mentioned earlier, as well as your ICANN support group. We found that they did not quite fathom the concept of data filtering, because the data is really not on the device, but the mobile app that we're supporting. The data is just being filtered, so we don't have to worry about the majority of the security concerns that others might be concerned with. Another lesson learned I would submit to you is, before you do any of that, have a strategy. Please understand or know what mobile apps you really want to put in an app store. the group that I oversee and manage is very experienced in agile development, that you probably want to employ an agile methodology, because that way you're able to provide more functionality incrementally, because if you wait and try to have it perfected, you'll probably never get anything out. And so those are probably the top three things that I would suggest to you were good lessons learned for us. And there are others that if anybody wants to inquire about them, I'll be happy to talk to you about them.
And last but not least, Roger. Roger's obviously doing some great things over at the VA with the emphasis on e-benefits. Recently had the I2 competition and also use of tablets in VA hospitals, so some pretty exciting stuff there. Obviously, in the healthcare arena, there's a lot of questions as well as other industries on how do we, kind of secure these devices and that sort of thing. So, what security concerns have you seen with both, kind of the internal enterprise as well as commercial apps, and what kind of steps do you recommend in taking to mitigate?
So I think you can in some ways synopsize the security concerns with we went from pilot to production with our iPhones and iPads on October 1st, and I think it was, generously you'd say June 1st before the first IG report on whether we had done that right was published, which means they had to start looking at it much sooner than that. We have a long history at the VA relative to information security. And I think fairly you would say the reason we have a long history is we started out bad and we turned into very good from that perspective because of lessons learned. We are fanatical as an agency about protecting personal health and personally identifiable information of veterans, again, for that very good reason. Where we've gone with this is to recognize that we're going to have to deal with two types of devices. And I agree with you, it's got to be device agnostic. But if you think about it, we're going to have devices where we want to retain information on the device. And there's a whole different level of trust involved with that than there is with the devices where we're just going to show the information and we can guarantee the information is not going to end up on the device. So we can be very agnostic about folks coming through our access gateways and wanting to look at, for example, their email or the financial application or a variety of other things where they can look at it. We've authenticated them, we know who they are, but we're much more concerned about those applications, as you mentioned, from a health standpoint. With a doctor carrying around an iPad or an Android with all their patient information on it, it's going to be local because you want that kind of response time, you want that kind of guarantee that the information is there, but it's also got to be strongly protected. And everything we're doing at this point is FIPS 140-2 encrypted. In the early days, there was a question whether we were going to be able to get there. There's no question about that at this point. But really, from our standpoint, from a security standpoint, dividing things into those two layers. Primarily internal, but retains information. And primarily external, and can only view information. And you lessen your security concerns substantially. You can increase your flexibility if you're only allowing viewing to go on in the external pieces.
Great, thanks. So I know that one of the focuses in this talk or panel that I thought was actually interesting that I hadn't really thought of as much. I mean, there was a lot of discussion around building citizen-facing apps as well as kind of enterprise apps for the employees. But then the procurement of apps as people are purchasing them on either GFE or their own personal devices, BYOD. What have you seen? What are the regulations? What are the best practices? Or is it, kind of still the Wild West out there as far as if an employee says, hey, I need to buy, Docs to Go because I want to be able to edit Word documents or whatever that may be. How does it work in your individual agency?
So I would just say that relative to buying an app for, especially for their own personal device, but even for the device we issue, have at it. It's your money. If I wanted you to have the app, I'd issue it to you. And as long as it fits within the MDM, and we are going to be watching for security threats with devices. It's the primary reason for having MDMs to have control over the security threats. And one of the things that's very clear when we issue the device is I reserve the right to wipe that device anytime I darn well feel like it. And with a BYOD, you're going to sign over pretty much that same level of control before you get internal access. So you have the 2 levels of access. You don't have to sign any level of control over me at all to use the viewer. You can bring that, you can do that from home, you can do it from wherever you want to. But if you want secure level access to my network, and you want to be able to access information from that network and right now on your device, then you're going to sign a piece of paper that turns control of that device over to me for the period of time it has that information on it. It may be a little bit draconian, but I get to testify in front of Congress, they don't. And I assure you, those of us that have had the experience in sitting at that table, the questions don't come in the form of, gee, Mr. Baker, why did you? They usually start with, when did you stop beating your spouse? And do you have documentation to that effect? Sorry, I've been there. So, there really has to be a fanaticism around the protection of that information, and it goes to kind of that approach to the apps and to the devices. But I agree with you very strongly. The device is not what matters. It's the app and it's the information. And I go again, it's the app. It's the information and what we do with the information.
So speaking of information, Kathleen,
So we're working on, within the Catholic Government-wide policy, we have set up a new office, Information Integrity and Access. And we're working on some information sharing policies, one in particular with ACT-IACT around back-end attribute exchange and what's the criteria there and how we look in terms of the acquisition arena, what are the implications there. We're also working on, I got asked by the active administrator to draft up bring your own device policy. There is none government-wide, and that's sort of what you're hearing. So, because you're taking a risk, and I take a budget standpoint, because you're not, paying for it either. So, because I think we're going to come out on if you want to put government information on your personal device, go for it. But there's going to be some policies and requirements around that, and I don't want to say it's sort of at risk, but it is because it has to be secure in terms of the government information, and that's one thing we're looking at around information sharing. If it's not secure, we can't be sharing the information within the agency, across agencies, and as according to the standards with the public. So there's a lot of good challenges around this, and it's good that agencies have moved out. I know there's a lot of agencies that are already piloting their new device. So we're trying to capture those best practices right now and hopefully put something out. I believe also the CIO Council is working on stuff that we need to get together with them on that. We're now to push out on this.
and Erna, I know that, I don't know if you have commercial apps within your NES app store. Is it only internal apps or?
There are, not within the app store that I manage, but there are some NASA apps in the iTunes store, if you will. As I mentioned earlier, we are endeavoring to develop a public-facing app soon, and we expect to be deployed perhaps in the July timeframe. And we've been working on that possibly for 4 to 5 months, and there's a little more work involved with regards to an external mobile app from a security perspective, as well as licenses for iTunes, etc. And so the team has just started that foray with regards to the deployment of an external facing app. So we don't have a lot of experience within our Center for Internal Mobile App because we were originally designated just for the internal app. So we're sort of working through that, and we are actually interfacing with a lot of the groups that were mentioned previously, the DHS, the ACT, IIA, Mobility Forum, and a number of other subgroups that are coming together for the express purpose of sharing a lot of the best practices and lessons learned. And so I'm certain we'll be able to leverage the things that those other groups are doing. I might also add that some of the people who were going to be here on the panel are participating in the CTO face-to-face, a NASA CTO face-to-face to speak to those very issues relative to being BYOD policy, that, oh, well, we have, probably something on paper. Is it a good policy? We're still sorting through that. And they're going to be dealing with a lot of things around security for external mobile applications. So I don't have a direct answer for you on that, but I know we are working through it, and we're reaching out to everybody to see.
Gotcha. Okay. So you mentioned that, it's not necessarily a device. It's a lot about the information in the apps or whatever. That being said, you manage the different devices differently, right? I mean, between the BlackBerry, between the iOS, between the Android, Windows Phone, are policies different? Are the way that you do purchasing different? That sort of thing.
Go ahead and I'll jump in.
Okay. Again, I spoke very early on about trying to be device agnostic. So whatever we develop with regards to the mobile application has to be able to be leveraged across all devices, issue on a policy that's probably standard in some respects too. So no, the answer for what we're doing right now, we're not trying to, promulgate a plethora of different types of policies, because that's going to become unwieldy as well. So we're trying to standardize as much as possible. So the answer for
I think the policies for the devices are the same. There are certain security requirements you've got to have, but the devices are different. Right now we're managing iPhones and iPads through an MDM. We're managing BlackBerries through the BlackBerry Enterprise server. And as we identify what it is we can do that secures Android devices such that they meet our requirements, I'm hoping that we can do that through an MDM, but if not, we will have some method of managing those. We recognize that what the MDM does is it turns a commercial device, one that's not meant for an enterprise, into a device that can be managed to enterprise rules. And so, whereas the BlackBerry Enterprise server came as part of what they did, they were aimed at enterprises. iPhones, iPads, and Android devices are not aimed at enterprises, they're aimed at the individual. So if I want to manage them to an enterprise, I've got to put the infrastructure behind them. That's what the MDM is. It's not a guarantee that the same MDM will work for iPhones and iPads as does for the Android. Policies across all those are effectively the same. If my information is going to hit the device and be stored there, it's going to be encrypted, and we have to figure out how we enforce that encryption across all those devices.
Captain?
No, but on this one I'm listening, because this is in terms of how you go about the policy. And one of the struggles we always have with policy is not getting in the way of those who
Well, I know that.
In terms of how do you write a policy that makes sense and doesn't stop operations, or have people like cursing at you, why did you do this, stupidest thing you've ever done. So I think what we're looking for is a policy department to be very broad and work within these parameters. But it's also need the security and the ability to continue information sharing on policies.
So I love that point because we talked about BYOD. It's possible that we'll end up with a policy that says only GFE can store information. There is a very, very difficult line we are going to jump over at the point where we allow personally owned devices to store that information. To the point you were talking about relative to policies. It's not possible for me to trust a policy that says you as an individual have to protect veterans' information on your personal device. I may be a Democratic appointee, but I channel Ronald Reagan. There, we are going to trust and verify. And as I look at BYOD, as big a fan of it as I am, recognizing that I've got 300,000 employees right now that have the YOD, they aren't allowed to be. I think that's the way you put it. They've got the device, and they want to know why they can't connect it to my network and my bandwidth and my information, and the answer is because I don't trust you, darn it. So I think we're going to have to wrestle through that, and I don't think we should assume that it's a guarantee that individuals are going to be able to put, in my case, veteran PHI and PII on their personally owned device. It's a goal. But it may turn out to be impossible between the technology and the legal requirements of the match.
So you may be able to figure out how to do it at VA, but maybe certain parts of DOD, it's just, or DHS is just going to say, no, it's not going to happen. And that's the agency's prerogative, that's the CIA's prerogative, that agency.
Well, you won't see BYOD and SuperNet come together anytime soon.
So, we've been talking a lot about the devices and buying commercial apps and that sort of thing. But you as agencies are also deploying your internal apps as well as public-facing apps. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the apps that you've built? Let's start with actually Kathleen.
Or AGP has just 2 apps, so we're proud of those. One, we have a per diem app. Hopefully you've downloaded that onto your iPhone, BlackBerry, and so that tells you the latest in terms of per diem. And the other is the SF tool, the Sustainability Facilities tool. And that one's really pretty cool because it allows you to go in and you're doing renovation work, painting, buying furniture, etc. It has actually some stuff on data centers in there. And you want to go through and not only look up what's the latest in terms of a sustainable approach, but you want to purchase. We've now actually linked it into the FAS schedules. So you can actually go in and purchase what you might need to carry out your work. So Steve Kevin and the team are very happy with that. So to our progressive apps.
Again, internal mobile app. Basically, I mentioned a little earlier about a time and attendance application. And we piloted that about a year ago. I think I mentioned it Ken early on. What's good about that success story is that about a year ago, we had major tornadoes down in Huntsville at one of our centers, which devastated some of that area. But notwithstanding, we still have to do their time and attendance. And so a lot of our employees were able to get their time done using their personal time to include their manager, certifying their time, et cetera. So that's one. We have also emergency notification system that we've been working on, emergency management notification system. They're different, believe it or not. One obviously is to allow managers the ability to account for their employees in an emergency situation. And the other is providing the notification that there is some natural disaster or emergency, et cetera. We also have an asset contact list. I'm trying to look at our landing page and remember all of the respective applications. But as I also mentioned to Ken earlier, we're embarking upon our first external facing app, and that's going to be called, well, it is called Space 365. It's more or less a timeline that allows the citizenry as well as government and contract employees to go in and take a look at what has happened since NASA's inception with regard to various programs, shuttle programs, etc., and to know what was happening in the world outside of NASA at that same point in time. I'm just trying to, again, we have a few administrative apps. Now, this is probably considered frivolous, but there is a center that wanted the ability to control their video teleconferencing and other equipment of that sort through mobile. So they'll probably do about maybe an iPad. And some may say that's frivolous, but for them, it's a good business case. And so, you have to look at, really consider the user experience with regard to design of the mobile app. And so, I guess you don't want to lose the goodness of mobile app development. So we're just trying to make sure we focus on the user experience. And again, that goes back to the comment I made earlier about discerning early on what types of apps you're going to put in your app store. That's only half of the ones that we actually have or will be in the app store. The balance of those are currently.
So we got a massive wake-up call about a year ago when some of our doctors released something called the Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder app on the iTunes store. And let's just say they did it without the assistance of the IT organization. Those crazy VA doctors, they tend to develop software like Vista and other things, and then turn it over to IT once it works really, really well from a medical standpoint. So let me tell you the quandary here. Here you had an app that was spot on for the hottest topic hitting veterans right now, which is returning veterans and post-traumatic stress. developed to all the evidence in the medical literature, and by all accounts, within the first few days, downloaded thousands of times, and I think we're into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times. And if you haven't seen all the awards that app has gotten in the last year, the last thing the CINO is going to do, and thanks Horace for using my favorite phrase, the last thing the CINO is going to do is say, oh, you got to pull that down off of iTunes because I didn't approve it. So we have been wrestling for the last year with the way that I couch it is, what does the VA brand mean in the apps world? And when you look externally at what we're doing right now, we're very focused on evidence-based, on trust, on the ability to know that if you put information into something, the information is going to be protected as best possible in the way you protect your device. But also, getting back to the medical side, is based on evidence from the literature. There are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of medical applications out there, and one of the things that we have decided is that we are not going to allow VA medical practice to be done based on apps where the literature doesn't support the development of the app. And there are tons of apps out there that aren't necessarily supported by literature. So you really come down to, I think, as an organization, that question that a company is going to ask very quickly, which is, what do you want the brand to mean? And there's a lot that we want our brand to mean to veterans, and especially those returning veterans that are just coming back from the wars. I mean, frankly, we'd like for it to mean helpfulness. Okay, I want that to sink in for a second, relative to past reputations of the VA. How about efficient? How about serving needs and a variety of other things? And that's what the apps have got to be oriented around. I think there's one other piece here that's very, very interesting that I'm just coming to grips with, which is the apps are the next generation of, for us, electronic health records, electronic benefits records. The storage and the internal business processes may be codified in our large legacy systems that run in our data centers. But what the doctors did 25 years ago with Vista is now going to be done on the apps for the mobile devices, not on the new electronic health record system. So I can certainly see apps getting developed by one or two doctors, spreading around their facility, getting picked up by several other facilities, and all of a sudden becoming a national standard for the way that VA practices its medical care. By the way, that's exactly what happened with the Vista medical record system 25 to 30 years ago. So the past will repeat itself, I believe, as we get on that path. And the answer is, the reason that Vista became the best medical record system out there was because it was developed to the doctor's specification, with the doctors applying that specification every day. I expect we'll see the same sort of thing with apps if we do it right. We keep the CINO out of their way and make it part of the solution, not part of the problem.
So in releasing these apps and that sort of thing, what would you say were the biggest challenges and lessons learned that you guys had?
Wow. I'm not sure we're far enough along to tell you that we've got real lessons learned. I can tell you that lesson learned to me on the PTSD app is there were 2 or 3 relatively small things that I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen a password on the application, because it's going to store individuals' personally identifiable information. I'd like to have seen a disclaimer that said, by the way, this is running on your iPhone. You store information on it. But mercifully, those things aren't there. So it's easy to get into, easy to use from an app standpoint. Other than that, I'm not sure we know. We're still, I love that example of, things are going to fail. Things are going to hopefully not fail often. I'd like to change that to succeed often, fail quickly. But there's going to be a ton of lessons learned, and I don't think we know what they are yet. I mean, unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit painful occasionally, but I think the more we encourage app development, the more we're going to find out what those lessons learned need to be. So check back with me in about 4 years.
Yeah, I the ability for our users especially to provide feedback to us on the respective apps and what they like about the features of the app, or what they don't like about the distribution of new releases, etc. So they do have the ability to access the app, but they have to put in password, PIN, etc. So there is a lot of security around it. So we haven't found that to necessarily be a problem. Yeah, people want to be able to just quickly, very hastily get to information without some safeguards. But that was one of the things that we worked with our ICANN and our security group to ensure, because the security group was very, very concerned that there would be some compromise of PII or PIA data, and for the NASA administrator, we did not want people to have the ability, obviously, to go into their time and attendance system and like on this time, or do other things that could prove to be very bad, if you will, and embarrassing. So I think we still are in the early phases as well, but what we do, as I indicated, was allow our users to be able to provide as much feedback as possible about how we're doing and what they would like to see differently, whether it's from an aesthetic perspective or functionality.
Well, you can take a great consumer device and you can enterprise it all up if you want to. It takes two complex, at least 8-character passwords typed in on the itty-bitty keyboard of this thing to get me into my PIPS 140-2 encrypted email. So if you think that doesn't cause some profanity to come out of the CIO occasionally, but that's what you're going to have if you're going to turn them into enterprise devices, a 4-character PIN, which, by the way, if I know anything about one of you, I can tell you what your PIN is within about 5 guesses. It's really easy if you look down the PIN side of things. So you go to complex passwords, you go to PIV. We haven't even talked about PIV cards with these yet. This is now my coming nightmare, is when I go to requiring PIV cards for use for all access to VA data, how does that happen for this, and for BlackBerries, and for iPads, and for Androids, and for everything everybody's going to want to do to get access to that data? That gets even more. I'm hoping DOD solves that problem long before I get Yep.
Okay, I'm actually going to open it up to any questions from the audience. Okay. Go ahead, screen.
I can yell. My name is Billy Sweet, and I've been working in app development for a while. Are you drawing a line also between apps that actually use the embedded features of the phone? Because we're talking about that displaying data, but you have a camera, and a GPS, and accelerometer, other things that can generate your data coming in. So is there a different set of security levels that you're looking at that type of app?
From our standpoint, there's a yes and no. I think we want apps to use those. For example, one of the highly useful features on an iPhone, iPad, Android is going to be the camera from a VA perspective. We've got a lot of doctors right now that are doing FaceTime appointments with their veteran client because it's just easier for the veteran client. Accelerometers, GPS, there are a lot of interesting things I can see on the device that would make the app highly useful. For example, our caregivers app, that are being used in the home for individuals that are taking care of a relative or a spouse. I can see a lot of that having real interest to it. So from my standpoint, the only question is portability there. And those things will, in general, make the app non-portable to other devices, but that's a choice that's made by the app developer. It's entirely possible that you'll end up with great apps where the specification is, it's available on the XYZ platform, but not the other platforms. We're just going to have to get over the security aspects of some of these things. I don't like the fact that I think everybody knows where I travel because GPS is turned on my iPhone, but you know what? That's a fact of life at this point. It's like not liking the fact that your credit card transactions can be tracked everywhere. amount of privacy in exchange for a certain benefit, we'll do the same sort of thing on the enterprise. Now, that's not to say we're going to take on undue risk relative to veterans' private information. I'll give you a great example of that. When we finally are able to allow doctors to use the VA video system connected to mobile devices in a veteran's home, we're going to make it very clear to the individual that we can't control the security of their internet connection, the security of their device, or anything else along those lines, and that there are only certain things we can do, and that there's a trade-off. For not having to drive 4 hours to the VA to see your doctor, you're doing it by a mobile device. I expect that's a trade-off that people are going to click buy faster than Microsoft enterprise license or device license agreement, because that's what they're going to want to do, and they're not going to worry about the individual pieces of that. A long-winded answer, but I think that's where that one goes. And NASA's going to do some cool things.
Actually, we are looking at a new transportation thing. And that's for another group that's working, our emerging technologies and CTO is working. But we do have a request in our bucket right now for the ENS app to have GIS type capabilities, etc. And obviously, as indicated by Ronnie, that's going to require different type of security focus. And so we're looking at that now. So the answer to that question is, as we get there and learn more, I'll give an answer to that question.
Any other questions?
Marty Burke, my son. Just about a year ago right now, one of our contracts at the IRS, doing migration or exchange, 2010 at the same time, that they had a large power failure, which downcycled the whole virtual environment, which made us realize that 156,000 mobile devices could not be brought back up. You mentioned BES before. And one of the things I find interesting about this whole trend is the whole monitoring and assurance of not only keeping the devices working, because you went through a period of time where the commissioner didn't know whether he'd be in the White House. He was not syncing calendars, and RIM was failing, and the monitoring was down to cluster level instead of down to device level. In the past year, there's been a number of technologies that have come out, one of the best practices, where it's NIPS, visible risk, ISO, everything. But really, it's almost moving so fast with these devices and not. I have to look at Microsoft. But I don't see, and we lived it into it, I don't see where your enterprise apps that are supporting email, for example, may not be anywhere near in sync with what the release or versions of some of these devices are. And it was really a very, very difficult thing. Email archiving, Active Directory, Exchange, all these things that are basic. It's not the fun, glamorous stuff of putting up apps and everything else. It's making sure that when people turn on their device, they just don't see an hourglass going around all day, or at 10 o'clock in the morning, they all of a sudden get 61 emails from last night. And one of the things that concerns us, and we see this also at SoCo, and so this is a government-wide problem of moving very fast. The private sector, this is one of the rare points where the private sector is behind government. Even Google's aside things, you will not find the financial services companies, the oil companies, some of our clients, they're nowhere near, they would never even consider BYOB. Because one of their concerns is if somebody's going to take an iPad and do a demonstration of government or corporate, and next to it it's not a link to some magazine that people want to read the stories in. So there's a lot of tools that are out there, but it seems that there's not, and I know about the app, I know about the SIG that's working on it, but it's almost like the SIG can't run fast enough to just give you sustained operational support. And to the point I was calling CEO Rick from the IRS,
CIO in 2006. We got to it 3 months ago in the VA. Same fundamental thing. You will have disk encryption on your laptop. The great part about it is in the private sector, you can say, oh, you don't want to have disk encryption? You don't need a job. Oh, did we solve that problem for you? Thank you very much. And so, it's the proliferation of versions that really causes an issue in there. Because what you would say in the private sector is we're planning an upgrade to 2010 in 6 months. There are these things we're responsible for making certain work with it. But you've got to test out all these other things that you brought in from a version standpoint. And if, after we upgrade, you're not compatible, that's your problem and not mine. And it goes to some of the sync issues and some of the other pieces. Conversions in the private sector, from my standpoint, were always much better tested than they are in the government, but because the private sector folks do much better constrain their environment. Really, when I get into that, we'll talk about Visa and what Visa does for changing the card protocols, because they go forward, because that's a highly constrained environment. But you'll notice they change them about once a year, and you never even notice that from a card standpoint. It's because that, A, very, very tight version control, but also a defined methodology that achieves that very, very along the way. So I think it's just the proliferation of the stack that we like it. That seems like a very CIO thing. If anybody understood any of that, other than
interesting opportunity that seems to be present with mobile applications, and specifically in the healthcare field, is that we don't have to just think about medical applications. We should think about applications that begin to reduce the probability of having to have medical procedures or improving one's health. Can you talk about what that opportunity, what opportunities are created within VA and how what VA does might be used in the rest of the community?
I love the example last night, somebody was using it, I can't remember exactly where, you tell your health insurance company that you're jogging 5 miles a day, but the GPS in your device no longer doesn't support that. It's a great lead into, to those kind of things, if everything is a sensor, everybody is a sensor. I could picture going back to Hal in 2001, Tom, do you really want to have that beer now? Tom, don't open that beer. I can really see those sort of things occurring. And a little bit is big brotherish, but think about medicines that when they're supposed to be taken start beeping at you. I mean, one of the biggest problems, especially with more elderly patients, is they have so many medications and they get confused about what you take, when, and where. And the older they get and the more confused they get, the more medications we give them. That's not a good piece of thing. You can kind of draw this all over the place into kind of a combination of the discussion that we had this morning with IPv6 and the trillions of addresses, 3 trillions is an underestimate, and all the different devices and all the cool things you could do that we talked about last night with the paper on the thing, all the way down to just what we could be doing right now, which is Mr. Love, you're supposed to be taking these 6 pills when you walk through the door at the VA. But here's one of the things we talked about. We're doing RFID, we're doing Wi-Fi, we're doing kiosks. And I can just extend this now to your iPhone or iPad. So that when you walk through the door, if you're carrying a prescription label that we sent you, it's got an RFID tag in it, we know that you've just entered. The screen over here may say, welcome Mr. Love, your appointment is in wing 3D, please walk this way. Your iPhone or iPad may say, can you confirm that you're taking these 3 drugs now? Yes, yes, yes. Maybe it even takes your vital statistics while you're walking along or something like that. So when you show up, it might even say, the doctor's running 5 minutes late. If you want to run by and get a cup of coffee before you show up, that would be really good with us. Sort of things. I mean, I can see just this plethora of things that aren't necessarily directly health, that come directly into the health arena, and we haven't even gotten into the fact that so many of our veterans are remote, and we don't see them often, and so we get into telehealth and all sorts of cool things that go on in there.
Do you see resistance in the medical community for doing these kinds of things?
The only issue I run into in the medical community is why can't you move faster? That's the only thing that I run into in the medical community. Along with the reason, but we got to make sure that these are medically sound when we do them. But no, I mean, I've used frequently the point about how we ended up with the push on iPhones and iPads. Every year we hire 100,000 of the by definition best and brightest in the United States colleges. The residents that are under training to be an MD, and they come into the VA and they want to know why they can't use their iPhone or their iPad or these other pieces of it. And trust me, we hear about it. I have almost as good a market research system as Congress does. I don't get voted out every 2 years, but I sure get told about it.
Okay.
Question about with the announcement of mobile and mobile and all the stuff on that side of it, do you see it becoming more of a 1.0 in the sense that because of security, because of the interactivity of applications and people worrying about certain types of data, do you think that agencies will let them say, okay, just take my publicly facing website and then make that my mobile site, and then I will check the box? Or do you actually think that they're going to go any farther than that? Or is there that security concern about what is in mobile devices or what could be available to mobile device, especially with the different amount of platforms and devices, and with the 14,000 devices now. So all that proliferation, do you see that, or do you see people in your agency across the board saying, all right, you know what, we're just going to satisfy the mandate by having kind of a publicly facing mobile app website as opposed to mobile?
Right now at GSA, we haven't been making much numbers in terms of what we do at GSA, but we're fairly mobile, and that's what we've been pushing over the last 2 years, and we're continuing that under Dan Tangalini. So it's about mobility, it's about teleworking, and it's about the ability to have access to all of your tools, whether it's on my iPad, I can get to my email, we have Chatter through Salesforce, I can get to that, so it's all been set up. If I want that on my home computer, I just through Citrix, I can ask for it and have it installed on my home computer. It's on all my devices. So it's been a big lift for the CIO and CIO community, but Casey Coleman and the team have made it happen. So we haven't had in terms of that issue. I think she's had to change a lot in order to enable that either. So good.
Hey, Mr. If you use your personally owned mobile device, would you just hold your hand up? You can hold the device up if you want. Or just if that's what you primarily use. If you use a company-owned mobile device primarily, if you use both, I think the reason we can't just go back to what happened with Web 1.0 from a government standpoint is there's so much more consumerization. Everybody's using the device that they bought because they like it, not because somebody else told them they needed to use it. And demand from that standpoint. If we try to go to 1.0, I think we're going to get laughed out this time around. We did okay with storefronts in the 2000 time frame because people stopped expecting it of government, and oh, by the way, when everything crashed, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, but it's not come back. I think there's such demand for what happens here that normally I would forecast that if we don't do it, somebody else will. We'll get out of business. That's hard to do with government, but I think somehow folks will figure out how to do that. The need will get solved in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's initially by somebody else doing it, or whether it's by finally the citizenry getting fed up and something has to change one way, shape, or form.
Do you see the Army and DoD applications that are currently being used in the field for combat, triage, and
it's something that would be very, very useful from an Army standpoint when the helicopter shows up. Probably equally as useful for an EMT when the truck shows up. We deal with, we in the United States deal with thousands of trauma cases every day. I haven't run the statistic, but it's probably gotten to the point now where there are certainly, I would hopefully believe there are more gunshot wounds in the U.S. today than there are in Afghanistan. That would say there should be a large market for those things. And yeah, I think it's interesting as you talk about NASA on the panel, talk about the Army and the DoD. Very interesting things come out of necessity from that standpoint. I mean, we have the internet that came out of effectively that same crowd of things. So yeah, I expect a lot of things that we had to learn, unfortunately, in both Iraq and Afghanistan to turn into great. I can tell you on the prosthesis standpoint, we're making tremendous advancements. Look at how many folks are living with 2, 3, and 4 amputations at this point, coming out of the battlefields. Massive things are occurring for protection in those environments. All those things, I believe, will pay benefits on the civilian side after they have paid their benefits on the military side as well.
All right, we have time for one more.
I would have a very interesting observation of that. Most of when people land in the field, particularly with special forces, first thing they do is they leave the government furnished equipment because it's too heavy, and they buy a BlackBerry or a cell phone and back it. So we still see that type of change going on.
So I think we're pretty much out of time. I'm lucky that I'm moderator, so I get to ask the last question. So I'd like each one of you to tell me how many mobile devices you actually personally own, which one is your preferred, and outside of email, what's your favorite app?
Not counting our kids, right?
No, just your first.
Okay, I have 3 devices, I'm there to say. My favorite actually is my personal iPad, and probably my mom's iPhone. And my favorite app is the shoe app. Everybody can relate to that. Okay, really, it's the walking pedometer.
Well, no, I'm gonna go last.
So I have 3 or 4. I just bought a touch computer and all. But I don't know how mobile that's going to be. I really like my iPhone. And again, the shock back on it. I mean, geez, I never have to go to the mall again. So thank God for, this is focusing delivery. Keeping them still in business.
I have 0 non-government owned mobile devices. I live with my government-issued iPhone, mostly on Wi-Fi, either inside the facility or inside my house. I almost never talk on the phone anymore. It's a highly inefficient way of doing things. I text and email during meetings like you would not believe.
Like texting here.
Right.
He was thinking it.
I was Facebook posting everybody who was in this. That's what we do.
Except that further questions.
It's really, it is interesting to change and the behavior with the movement of the mobile device, but it's been very, very effective. I'm a much better communicator. I think people think I'm a little bit rude on Metro because I go in, I get a seat, and I look like this for the next 45 minutes. From when I get on the train to when I get off, I'm plowing through emails. The beauty of it is I get an extra hour at home that I get to spend engaged at home versus going through the emails that arrived on my trip home or during the day. So highly productive, and that's right, reminds me around to, I hate to admit it, but my favorite